Welcome to NTD News. I'm Jasmina Davis. Here are today's top stories. President Trump and Biden's campaign stops were marred by bad weather yesterday. Each candidate's rally style this year tells a different tale. One favors big in-person events, while one puts rules and safety first. The former Biden family business partner gives more details about what's happened since he first came out. He says he's now a material witness for the FBI. Following several nights of unrest, Philadelphia is now dealing with the aftermath. Our reporter Kevin Hogan visited the city to give us an update. U.S. officials meet at the border wall in Texas. They announced the latest milestone as they close in on 400 miles of completed wall. 6 die after tropical storm Zeta spun into a Category 2 hurricane, hitting the Gulf Coast before traveling inland. Over 2 million people were left without power. President Trump and Joe Biden have taken different approaches to raising their campaign's profile. Biden's team spent heavily on TV and online advertisements, whereas the president has made more stops around the country. Trump's team says each event generates local media coverage and allows more people to hear and see him in person.
Both Joe Biden and President Trump experienced bad weather on Thursday, causing a shutdown to planned campaign events. Biden cut his drive-in rally short Thursday night due to a downpour in Tampa, Florida, but not before getting soaked. The president canceled his event in Fayetteville, North Carolina earlier on Thursday evening as Tropical Storm Zeta brought wind gusts to the area reaching 50 miles per hour.
Bad weather, the wind was terrible. We were forced to do it for safety reasons, but we're doing it, we're remaking it on Monday, big crowd.
The run-up to Election Day offers a stark contrast between the two candidates' campaign strategies. President Trump has been running at full speed with his iconic large rallies, delivering 3 campaign stops per day this week. Biden has kept a noticeably lower profile, favoring alternatives to a traditional campaign rally. President Trump has criticized Biden for not wanting to leave his basement. Biden has said Trump is putting on super spreader events. At just 4 years, the age difference between the two candidates is not significant, though commentators have questioned their apparent difference in energy levels and memory function. Other differences include the amount of cash on hand in each campaign. According to the Federal Election Committee, Biden's campaign had $162 million on October 14th, compared to around $46 million from Trump's side.
$2.3 million were stolen from the Wisconsin Republican Party's account by hackers. Those funds were intended to aid President Trump's re-election in the battleground state. The hackers may have sent emails claiming to be from reputable companies in order to get individuals to reveal passwords or other personal information. When the Wisconsin GOP paid for campaign material, the funds went to the hackers rather than the vendors. President Trump won the state by fewer than 30,000 votes in 2016. The GOP's chairman said the lost money strikes a blow to the close race in the battleground state. The Biden family's former business partner says he spoke with the FBI for several hours last week. He said they discussed the Biden family, their deal with a Chinese state-owned company, and operations in other countries.
Former Hunter Biden business associate Tony Bobulinski said the FBI lists him as a material witness regarding the Biden family's business dealings. He told Sinclair Broadcast Group in an interview released Thursday that he was questioned by 6 FBI agents with counsel present for 5 hours on October 23rd, listing him as a material witness in an ongoing investigation focused on Hunter Biden and his associates. Bobulinski is the CEO of Sinohawk Holdings. It was a partnership between a Chinese state-owned company and the Biden family. Bobulinski said the FBI agents examined the 3 cell phones he made available, and they would ask him back for additional questioning. Sinclair Broadcast Group journalist James Rosen also reported on Thursday the FBI is allegedly investigating Hunter Biden. He said an unnamed Justice Department official confirmed that a criminal investigation began in 2019. He said it's looking into Hunter Biden and his associates over allegations of money laundering. The FBI told the Epoch Times it has no comment. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden has said reports about his son's dealings with other countries are part of a smear campaign.
Delivery company UPS has confirmed that it has found documents relating to the Bidens that a taco talk show host calls damning. This is hours after they had the documents were lost. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on the package.
On Wednesday night, Fox News' Tucker Carlson said the damning contents of a package related to the Biden family went missing. He says the package was mailed to him in Los Angeles and never arrived. The delivery company UPS told Business Insider in a statement that they were conducting an urgent investigation into the open package. But now, according to the same media company, UPS says they've been found. In a statement, UPS said, after an extensive search, we have found the contents of the package and are arranging for its return. Carlson said on his show that they had initially received the Biden-related documents on Monday.
So on Monday of this week, we received from a source a collection of confidential documents related to the Biden family. We believe those documents are authentic, they're real, and they're damning.
Carlson hasn't publicly mentioned any other details about those documents, nor explained what makes them damning. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
The U.S.-Mexico border wall has close to 400 miles complete. The acting Secretary of Homeland Security called it an important milestone that had its challenges.
Top Trump administration officials visited Texas this week. They announced the completion of almost 400 miles of the U.S.-Mexico border wall. Hundreds of miles of fencing as high as 30 feet was built in a short amount of time, much of it this year. The Department of Homeland Security waived environmental and other reviews to expedite construction. Acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf and other officials spoke in Texas' Rio Grande Valley, a region known as the busiest corridor for unauthorized crossings.
In areas where the new border wall system has been deployed, we now decide where border crossings take place by forcing smugglers, traffickers, and other criminals to pass through areas that are easier to surveil or through ports of entry where we have resources and personnel there to interdict.
Wolf criticized House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and judges who have ruled against the wall.
It's plain to see these measures protect Americans because they work and because they are effective.
So far, the construction has been funded by U.S. taxpayers for at least $15 billion, with two-thirds coming from military funding. President Trump has repeatedly promised that Mexico will pay for the wall. More recently, he has suggested how this would be done by putting a toll on vehicles entering the U.S. from Mexico. The Trump administration has enacted other measures to stop border crossers. It includes new restrictions on asylum eligibility and a public health declaration that allows agents to quickly expel most migrants.
The Justice Department is urging lawmakers to reform Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. An official from the department sent a letter to lawmakers earlier this week. He cited social media's recent suppression of the New York Post articles about Hunter Biden. He wrote, "Today's large online platforms hold tremendous power over the information and views available to the American people. It is therefore critical that they be honest and transparent with users about how they use that power. Under Section 230, online platforms are not responsible for what users post, except when they violate certain laws." The DOJ official said, "Online platforms have changed the way they operate. They no longer simple forums for posting third-party content." In Philadelphia, the looting and violence that has marred peaceful protests has apparently calmed down after an overnight curfew following the death of Walter Wallace on Monday. Wallace, a father of 8, was said to be struggling with mental health issues when he wielded a knife before being fatally shot by police. Our reporter Kevin Hogan brings us more on the aftermath in the city.
Look at them.
Wallace's death has left a community in need of healing and a city ravaged by unrest. About 50 officers were injured and over 170 people arrested in the riots that followed. The Wallace family set out a memorial for their son, and a young minister came out to pray for their family.
It's my duty, it's my task as a Christian believer and a runner in Christ, that to come out here and pray for one another, because we need it right now in our city. Our officers need it, our officials need it, the family needs it. They need it more than anything right now.
On Tuesday, hundreds of people swarmed a Walmart in the Port Richmond neighborhood. A man driving through the parking lot said a rioter shot a looter whose car was full of goods and drove off with it. It's just about midnight here in Philadelphia, where the city is under a curfew from 9 o'clock Wednesday night until Thursday morning. The National Guard has said it's on its way following the unrest over the last few days. From what we've seen, the streets are calm, unlike last night when a journalist was attacked while covering the looting at a Walmart.
So when I apologized and said, I'm sorry, they continued to grab me. One gentleman swung a fist to my face. Others began to punch my face. I took about a dozen hits to my body, face, jaw. I have a lot of cuts in my mouth and maybe a concussion. I haven't been able to get to see a medical professional. Even though I've been trying.
The Blaze reporter Elijah Schaefer said he identified himself as a member of the press and told them he was just filming and not incriminating. But he said they continued to try to rob him, and it took the help of other journalists to escape. A reporter with him said a group of black men in the Walmart singled out Schaefer and attacked him.
Myself and another Hispanic reporter were doing the exact same thing, however we weren't targeted. And then later on in the night we have another reporter who is a friend of ours. He was also covering the scene in a different location, and again another white reporter, and he was targeted and he was actually chased out to 3 blocks. He had to run. He was chased out by a mob.
Schaefer said a man he presumed to be black did step in and try to de-escalate the situation. But he said he knew he was in a dangerous situation because he heard gunshots near the shopping center and people had knives and were beating each other.
And the reason why I say I believe I was targeted specifically for my skin color is because racial tensions are very high in this country. There are narratives that try to pit white people and black people against each other in this nation.
Reports show police found explosives in a van in Philadelphia's Center City neighborhood on Wednesday night. Police say they recovered torches, propane tanks, and possible sticks of dynamite. There is a community prayer in West Philadelphia for the Wallace family this Saturday. Kevin Hogan, NTD News, Philadelphia.
At least 6 people were killed in the southeast of the United States, and more than 2 million people were without power on Thursday. Hurricane Zeta slammed into the Gulf Coast before moving northeast. Zeta spun up in the Caribbean Sea and went from a tropical storm to a damaging Category 2 hurricane in less than 4 days. The first confirmed death from Zeta was a 55-year-old man in New Orleans. He was electrocuted by a downed power line. 4 people died in Alabama and Georgia from trees crashing down on homes. And a 58-year-old man on Mississippi drowned when he was trapped in rising seawater while taking video of the storm. It is the 27th named storm this season. One more storm would tie the record set in 2005. The U.S. Postal Service says it has delivered at least 122 million blank and completed ballots ahead of Tuesday's presidential election. That's as early voting hit record numbers in this year's election. The USPS said the figure was up from 100 million ballots delivered as of last week. It added that since October 1st, it had been delivering all first-class mail in an average of 2.5 days, and 97.5% of all first-class mail was delivered within 5 days. More than 80 million Americans have already cast ballots in the presidential election. That includes more than 51 million ballots cast by mail. The USPS is taking measures to get ballots delivered promptly, including extra pickups, deliveries, and Sunday collections. Coming up, a doctor decides to run for Congress in Georgia. Find out why he thinks the career change is necessary in the current political climate. And rescue animals from the Hawaiian Islands are flying to new homes in the mainland. Shelters on the islands have become overcrowded due to the pandemic. That and more after the break. The Justice Department is investigating the potential miscounting of CCP virus deaths in nursing homes. A letter from the DOJ's Civil Division is seeking data from hundreds of private nursing homes in New York State. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has faced criticism for months over an executive order of his that sent recovering patients back into nursing homes. Critics say this order contributed to elderly patients' deaths at the height of the pandemic. The state's official count of 6,722 only includes patients who died on nursing home properties. It does not include those with the virus who left a care home and died in a hospital. The governor is claiming a low death rate of death in the nursing homes compared to other states. An Associated Press analysis from August is showing potential undercounting of the number of deaths by the thousands. Cuomo has repeatedly denied media and lawmakers access to relevant data. The spokesperson for the governor called the DOJ's latest request a distraction days before the election. A pro-Trump Honduran immigrant says he was attacked at Times Square during an event in support of the president. Now he's encouraging people to speak up against the violent opposition that's out to shut them down. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on that.
It's really sad that even U.S. citizens born in the United States are afraid to say, I'm voting for Trump.
Dinek Martinez, a Honduran immigrant, was participating in pro-Trump events this weekend when he says he was attacked by either a member of Antifa or a Black Lives Matter activist. He says he was kicked to the ground after going to help a man who was attacked and was enraged by it.
No freedom socialism. Ask the Chinese people who came from there. Ask the Venezuelan. Ask the Cuban. Yes. Ask them. You're born in this country. Lucky you. You don't know what the heck is that.
In his view, Dinek says Antifa members and BLM activists are basically doing what socialist communist regimes do when the country's people don't agree with it. Shut them down.
On those countries, like, you got no freedom. You cannot speak your mind. If you speak against the president, you may end up in jail. You speak more strongly, strongly, they can kill you or can kill your family. Antifa and BLM basically are promoting that. Like, you are with them or you are against them.
There were other moments that day where people showing support for Trump were attacked. What appears to be eggs and paint were thrown at them. Dinek, who says he's a trans and atheist, says the LGBT community, atheists, and immigrants need to stand together against communism and socialism. He says he doesn't know who attacked him because the suspect was disguised, but he has filed a police report. Miguel Moreno, NTD News, New York.
We spoke with a congressional candidate from Georgia's swing voter district to find out more about why he's willing to leave his career as a doctor to work in government. NTD's Melina Weiskup has more.
Georgia has been rated the best place to do business for 7 consecutive years. That's even under the pandemic. The state was also criticized for being one of the first to fully reopen after the lockdowns that swept the nation.
The most draconian control measures haven't always resulted in the best outcomes. The highest mortality rate in America, as a matter of fact, in the world, are New Jersey and New York. So what they were doing obviously didn't work.
He's still working as a doctor in Georgia, and at the same time running for the state's 7th district congressional seat. McCormick suggests one reason why he thinks this district in the metro Atlanta area has become a swing voter area. He says it's because it takes longer to explain how economics works than to simply say what's pleasing to hear.
As you've seen the demographics change here, you've seen lower income housing come in. You have a lot of people who have been taught since they're little kids that socialism is okay, that it's a real solution to our problems. It takes me 5 seconds to say free education, free healthcare, free. I didn't have to explain anything. I don't have to explain the economics behind that, where it's going to come from. Oh, when people ask where it comes from, oh, I'm going to take it from the wealthiest people. So you think wealthiest people absorb all that and they don't pass those things down to anybody else? That it just magically comes out of the economy and doesn't destroy jobs?
He says examples of failed socialist experiments like Venezuela and China can be seen closer to home. He says New York and California are states that went full force in trying out the socialist system.
And they started to increase taxes, increase regulation, increase the socialist mentalities, all the promises of left for free things, all from bigger government, which is the most inefficient way to deliver things. They've started to fail. And at first they had a trickle of exodus, and now they have millions of people leaving their state to the point where they're actually going to lose a congressional seat because they've lost population. They're shrinking. For the first time in history, you come here to America for one thing, opportunity, an opportunity that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. And if we ruin that, there will be nowhere else to go.
And McCormick decided to run for Congress after getting a first-hand experience, seeing how patients struggled under what he called the broken healthcare system.
Everything is high.
Hey, the premium is so high.
Whenever you get government involved in healthcare, It creates more administration, more burdens, more regulation. That's all an expense that we pay for out of our premiums.
He says in order to pull out of these problems, there needs to be what he called a realignment of the parties, meaning more compromise and each party caring less for who takes credit for policies. Reporting in Atlanta, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Retail giant Walmart will pull all guns and ammunition from its store displays on sales floors this week. The company is trying to prevent the theft of firearms if stores are looted or broken into. It said it had seen some isolated civil unrest. Customers will still be able to buy firearms and ammo upon request. Walmart says it has made the same move in previous years. And more recently, it came amid widespread demonstrations, vandalism, and looting following the death of George Floyd. Hundreds of pets from the Hawaiian Islands are now on the mainland in an effort to ease the strain on shelters that have become overcrowded due to the pandemic.
Greater Good Charities is just one of the several groups involved in the operation. According to CEO Liz Baker, Hawaiian pet shelters normally use commercial flights to transport adopted animals.
So we are looking at the largest animal transport flight in history. It is in response to this pandemic.
However, travel restrictions have reduced the availability in planes. In July, her organization and others decided to charter a flight to free up space. The animals arrived in Seattle's Boeing Field on a chartered Hercules C-130.
This does my heart a lot of good. There's still a lot of people coming out and supporting these folks.
The dogs and cats that arrived will be taken in by shelters in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Montana, where they will be available for adoption. Volunteers worked diligently to unload, feed, soothe, and sort the animals in the crates.
You know, it brings tears to my eyes when I get to see all of the animals getting off the plane and being able to feed them, and there's animals from babies to adults, and so it really warms my heart to see how incredible of an organization this is.
Baker is adopting one of the puppies on board. She said her 10-year-old pit bull Stella died unexpectedly this week.
Coming up, U.S. Customs officials seized counterfeit goods worth millions in Los Angeles. The shipment came from China. The goods included pills and apparel. And the Department of Justice just indicted a group of stealing U.S. trade secrets from the oil and gas industry. Among those charged, a Chinese energy company. The Department of Justice indicted a group including a Chinese energy company for stealing American trade secrets. NTD's Christina Kim has more details.
A group of individuals and companies in the energy, oil, and gas industry are being charged with conspiracy and theft of trade secrets. A Chinese company called Jason Energy Technologies, or JET, and an American oil and gas affiliate called Jason Oil and Gas Equipment, or JOG, have been charged. Lei Gao is charged with conspiracy, theft of trade secrets, and attempted theft of trade secrets. Robert Erford Jr., who worked for a Houston area company, is also charged. According to a statement from the Department of Justice, Gao allegedly met with Erford at the Jason Oil and Gas offices in Houston, where Erford signed a consultancy agreement. At that meeting, Erford was given a letter from the JET general manager. The manager allegedly invited Erford to visit the Chinese company to have a technical exchange and discussion. On or about November 22, 2019, Erford allegedly transferred a victim company document that had a trade secret from the United States to China for JET's benefit. Around November 25th to 29th, 2019, Erford held meetings with Gao and JET officials where they allegedly discussed coil tubing technology, including victim company proprietary technology, practices, and procedures. The corporate entities could face up to a $5 million fine or 3 times the value of the stolen trade secret, whichever amount is greater. Gao faces a possible prison sentence of up to 10 years and a $250,000 fine, or twice the gross gain or loss. Christina Kim, NTD News.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo condemns the Chinese Communist Party and the Hong Kong government over its recent arrest and detention of 3 student activists. Pompeo says the CCP has violated its international obligations under the 1984 Sino-British Joint Declaration and doesn't respect human rights, including the rights to peaceful assembly and freedom of expression. The 3 students arrested on Tuesday were former members of a Hong Kong-based pro-independence organization called Student Localism. They were arrested on suspicion of inciting secession, violating the national security law on July 29th. U.S. Customs officials seized a cargo shipment from China. It included fake pills and goods worth millions. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more on the story.
U.S. Customs officials seized millions of dollars of fake goods from China in Los Angeles. Customs and Border Protection officials said in a statement the counterfeit goods were worth over $3.5 million. The Los Angeles Police Department is now investigating the seized merchandise. Customs agents seized over 31,000 fake goods last month at the Los Angeles Long Beach port. Among the items were 25,000 counterfeit Viagra pills and over 5,000 items of footwear and apparel with the logos of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Versace, and Nike, among others. All the goods came in a cargo shipment from China. The director of Los Angeles CBP Field Operations said in a statement counterfeit goods damage the American economy, adding the goods can threaten the health and safety of consumers. He recommends consumers only buy from legitimate sources to protect themselves. He said by buying fake goods, consumers are often giving money to transnational criminal organizations. Counterfeit goods flooding the American market isn't new. The FBI issued a report in August this year detailing how China costs the U.S. $200 to $600 billion annually in stolen trade secrets, counterfeit goods, and pirated software. The Philippines is building up their own fleet to counter the growing Chinese threat in the region. The Philippines Foreign Affairs Secretary said they were building their own fleet to swarm all over the place in the South China Sea. He made the comments at an online discussion on Monday held by Asia Society. The strategy for flooding the sea with vessels is to increase the likelihood of one of the military vessels getting hit in the highly disputed waters. Such an accident would trigger the Philippines' defense treaty with the U.S. U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said last year any armed attack on Philippine forces, aircraft, or public vessels in the South China Sea would trigger mutual defense obligations under the treaty. The Philippine Navy Chief Vice Admiral announced plans on Monday to deploy a fleet of over 200 armed militia to patrol the South China Sea region. The Philippines' top diplomat, however, added on Monday the country aims to maintain good relations with both the U.S. and China. During the CCP 5th plenary session in Beijing, unusual things happened. In the northern Chinese city Shijiazhuang, people witnessed 2 suns in the sky Wednesday morning. A video circulating online seemed to show 2 suns of different sizes in the sky at around 9 a.m. local time. Scientists say it's an atmospheric optical phenomenon. They call it a sundog, referring to a concentrated patch of sunlight, occasionally seen about 22 degrees to the left or right of the sun. However, many Chinese people believe that it's a sign of a new era coming, according to Chinese traditional culture. A master of Dao school, Li Chunfeng, lived 1,400 years ago. His prophecy book is proven to be one of the most accurate in history. He once wrote, when 2 suns appear together, subordinate warlords will conspire a destruction. There will be wars and the one against the law will be eliminated.
China's top leadership concluded one of the key meetings of the year today, but one of the highlights of the meeting is raising alarm. NTD's Juliet Song reports.
On Thursday, China wrapped up one of the most important political meetings of the year, the 5th plenary session. The meeting would usually highlight party leaders' top goals, and this year, one of them is raising eyebrows. The goal in question is a 15-year plan called Vision 2035. On the surface, it's Chinese leader Xi Jinping's vision for what the country would achieve in 2035. But for many China watchers, it sounds like a signal of Xi's emperor dream. Ben Hillman, a political scientist at Australian National University, told the BBC that the plan has prompted speculation that Xi intends to lead China through this period, becoming essentially president for life. Theoretically speaking, Xi's term as China's leader ends in 2022, and according to party traditions, he would appoint the successor in this meeting. But this year, no successor was named. Also, under communist rule, China still has remnants of a planned economy. So it's typical for party leaders to draft a plan every 5 years, which they did. But a 15-year plan is really rare, even for Communist Party officials. Also, the plan comes at a time when China is facing ever-increasing uncertainties. With a battered economy and the pandemic, a 15-year plan seems highly optimistic. But Xi's plan may have been long in the making. China's law used to limit the leader to 2 terms, but in 2018, Xi removed the limit, which technically allows him to stay in power as long as he wishes. Juliet Son, NTD News.
Coming up, the MTA gives an update on how the agency is keeping New Yorkers from the virus as they commute. But officials stress the public transit system is still in dire need of federal aid. And a powerful Korean business family is fighting for position. It's after the death of family patriarch and Samsung Group chairman Lee Kun-hee. More back and forth about the stimulus, both sides pointing fingers about who's responsible for the impasse. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow says House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is unwilling to compromise on key issues and that she's been stringing them along. He criticized Pelosi for a letter she sent to Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. He suggested it was leaked to the press before it was sent to Mnuchin. In her letter, Pelosi called on the White House to respond to her demands. She warned that a lack of action would cause more economic suffering. Earlier this week, President Trump predicted that a stimulus deal would be passed after the election. New York's MTA is boosting its virus safety measures and technological innovation. One thing they'd like to change is their financial situation. The agency said a lack of federal funding means they're facing a fiscal tsunami.
In preparation for a potential second virus outbreak, the MTA announced it will be taking new measures and creating more policies. They're now giving voluntary COVID screening to their frontline employees at field locations and health facilities. The initiative is the first of its kind for the MTA.
Further, we continue our daily cleaning and disinfecting of stations, trains, buses, paratransit vehicles, and employee workspaces. Second, we initiated an aggressive flu immunization program at the beginning of this month. In the first 3 weeks of the program, several thousand employees have already received the shot, and our count already approaches last year's total.
The transit agency also reported they're close to reaching the 15 million mark for distributing free masks in its system. 10 million of them have gone to its workforce. But while the agency is making an effort to keep its system virus-free, they're still facing the problem of insufficient funds.
Ridership continues to be down significantly, affecting revenues. CFO Bob Foran and his team are hard at work on the November financial plan, but without federal aid, the prognosis has changed. We face a 5-alarm fire and a fiscal tsunami.
The MTA said they will have no choice but to minimize their operations. According to the NYU Rudin Center for Transportation, a reduction in MTA service of up to 40% on subways and up to 50% on railroads would result in the loss of 450,000 employees by 2022. The agency would also have to increase fares.
It would be unspeakable for thousands of incredible MTA workers who have heroically kept the city moving throughout the pandemic, heroes moving heroes, for them to lose their jobs. Not to mention the terrible position any reduction in service creates for all our customers.
If the federal government gives $12 billion, the MTA could avoid a significant loss in GDP and in the number of employees. The board will be discussing their ticket price and policy review at the November and December board meetings this year.
From a hefty tax bill to legal hurdles, these are some of the obstacles South Korea's powerful Lee family is facing as they try to maintain their grip on Samsung Group following the death of patriarch and group chairman Lee Kun-hee.
South Korea's powerful Lee family is fighting to maintain control of Samsung Group following the loss of charismatic patriarch and group chairman Lee Kun-hee. Let's take a look at his legacy and the path ahead for the titan of tech.
To show them the realities of Samsung.
Lee was the richest person in South Korea. He helped grow the conglomerate his father built from a noodle trading business into a global powerhouse. With assets worth $375 billion, Samsung Group's affiliates stretch from electronics and insurance to shipbuilding and construction. Reuters calculated the group's 2019 revenue was worth around 17% of the entire country's GDP. While praised for his leadership, Lee was no saint and was convicted of bribery and tax evasion. He and his empire were vilified for wielding huge clout, opaque governance, and dubious transfers of the family wealth. He leaves behind potential thorny succession issues for the third generation. Sprawling family-run conglomerates are at the heart of South Korea's transformation into one of the world's biggest exporters. They are known as chaebol, which means wealth clique in Korean. Alongside Samsung, they also include the likes of LG and Hyundai. Lee's net worth was $20.9 billion, according to Forbes. It's unclear how his 3 children and wife will split his wealth, an issue that led to family feuds at other chaebols. His son J.Y. Lee is heir apparent and the de facto leader, but has been embroiled in legal troubles of his own. He served jail time for his role in a bribery scandal which triggered the impeachment of then-President Park Geun-hye. Whether the Lee family can keep their grip on Samsung Group remains in question as they grapple with a series of obstacles. These are some of the issues they face. Firstly, there's Samsung Electronics, the jewel in the conglomerate's crown. The family's combined direct stake ownership is only 5.8%, and that of J.Y. Lee just 0.7%. The family's outsized control is made possible through shareholdings in other group affiliates. They'll try to inherit the late chairman's stake, but they're facing a hefty inheritance tax bill. If the family inherits Lee's stocks, the total is estimated to top over $9 billion. That's raised expectations for stake sales and a potential restructuring of the sprawling business empire. Then there's legal hurdles. Proposed legislation could force affiliate Samsung Life to sell about $20 billion in shares in Samsung Electronics. That would cripple the Lee family's grip on the chip maker. The passage of the law remains uncertain. It could be unpopular with retail investors ahead of a presidential election in early 2022.
Up next, a second beheading in France this month. 3 people were killed, including a church warden. President Macron vows France will not give up its taste for freedom. And in order to get the second wave of COVID-19 under control, Germany and France will go back into lockdown. Find out more after the break. A team of German lawyers says the common CCP virus test is not reliable. They want to sue the test's inventor in a U.S. court in a class action lawsuit since German law currently doesn't allow that route. NTD's Germany correspondent Christian Watchen has more.
A team of German lawyers plans to initiate a class action lawsuit in the U.S. against the inventor of the first CCP virus test. They seek compensation for businesses that have suffered damages from the anti-CCP virus measures. They say the common PCR test that is used to determine infections is not reliable. And since most measures are based on infection rates, these lawyers argue there is no valid legal basis to impose them.
So we have a damage-causing event that is virtually the same all over the world, namely this PCR test, in all countries of the world where it is used, including the USA, and this is the bracket to say, then we have the US connection.
Their strategy: a US lawyer they are coordinating with sues on behalf of a US plaintiff in a US court. After a judge allows the trial to go ahead as a class action suit, other damaged parties from the US, Germany, and other countries can join. The suit is directed against the inventor of the first test to diagnose the CCP virus, German virologist Christian Drosten, and the WHO, which has promoted the test worldwide. In August, it was revealed that up to 90% of people with positive results in the US were misdiagnosed. Templin and his colleagues have thousands of clients. They hope for more than just to win the case.
A class action lawsuit at the same time, we are firmly convinced will have a great political effect in the end, because then people can say these are the ones who got us into this mess.
Since July, they have led a so-called Corona Investigative Committee where they heard from experts on the collateral damage antivirus measures caused in society, from restrictions on basic rights to a delay in life-saving operations and a rise in child abuse. Next year, bankruptcies are expected to go up by 12% in Germany, in the US by over 50%. On Wednesday, amid an exponential increase in infection rates, German Chancellor Angela Merkel decided to impose an emergency month-long lockdown. On the same day, several German virologists and medical associations warned that such measures are neither purposeful nor proportionate. Templin expects the case to be filed within 14 days. Reporting by Alexander Zizowski, Epoch Times, and Christian Watchen, NTD News, Berlin.
Over to Europe. While France is still reeling from the beheading of a teacher for showing pupils cartoons of Prophet Muhammad, there's been another attack that happened and 3 people lost their lives. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Thanks. Welcome to the UK newsroom with UK and European news. 3 people are dead in a suspected terrorist attack in the southeast French city of Nice.
Visiting the site, French President Emmanuel Macron says France was attacked over its values and taste for freedom.
Let me say this very clearly again. We will never give in.
The attack was at Notre Dame Church. One victim is the church warden. Nice's mayor describes the attack as terrorism.
Today, we are paying too high a price. And once again, we are the victim of Islamofascism.
France's security alert is raised to its highest level. More soldiers are deployed to protect key sites such as places of worship and schools.
And French and German citizens are coming to terms with impending nationwide lockdowns as the governments of both countries take action to get the second European wave of COVID-19 under control. David Vivers and Christian Watchen bring us the details.
France is going back into a nationwide lockdown. It hopes to contain COVID-19 infections that are threatening to spiral out of control. On Tuesday, France reported 523 COVID-19 deaths over 24 hours, the highest daily toll since April. Doctors warned intensive care units risk becoming overwhelmed. The new measures echo the 8-week lockdown France enforced in the spring, when hospitalizations and deaths caused by the pandemic reached a peak.
Like in the spring, you will be able to leave your house only to work, for a medical appointment, to provide assistance to a relative, to shop for essential goods or to get some air near your house.
In the words of President Macron, the lockdown is the only solution for the pandemic. In his speech, he said that he would choose to save lives no matter the costs. The problem is that many businesses will be forced to close. They have been hit by waves of measures, one after the other, such as lockdown, curfews, restrictions to welcome the public, so this new lockdown seems to be the fatal blow for them. According to the head of the Union of Business CEOs, the new lockdown means France's economy will not only be in a 10% GDP recession, it will collapse in the following months. So even though the parliament voted to support the lockdown's measure, it remains to see how the population will react to this new lockdown. Reporting by David Vives, NTD News.
On Wednesday, the German government decided on a partial lockdown in hopes of slowing down CCP virus infection rates. For 1 month starting November 2nd, restaurants, bars, theatres and gyms will shut. Schools, childcare centres and shops will remain open, but under stricter hygiene rules.
The measures that we have to implement are appropriate, necessary and proportionate. There is no other milder approach than strictly reducing personal contact.
Gatherings will be limited to 10 people from a maximum of 2 households.
Intensive care doctors welcome the lockdown. Although 1/3 of all intensive care units are currently available, the doctors say as cases keep rising, they worry there won't be enough healthcare staff.
Several opposition parties criticized that Parliament was not involved in the decision.
Such decision-making not only jeopardizes the acceptance of corona measures, they also contain considerable legal risks and threaten to deform our parliamentary democracy.
Owners of restaurants and bars are expected to be hit hard. Some fear going bankrupt.
I am totally annoyed that this is not a sustainable strategy. It's just a desire to be seen to be doing something on the part of the government.
Many observers are concerned that without a long-term strategy, cases will go up again, possibly leading to another lockdown. Reporting by Christian Watchen, NTD News, Berlin.
And in the UK, a dementia support group is taking legal action against the UK government. They say pandemic measures contributed to a rise in dementia deaths. Our UK correspondent Jane Werrell has the story.
Family members are analogous to medication, really, or to therapy for someone with dementia.
John's Campaign, a dementia support group, says government guidelines amount to blanket bans on care home visits in high-risk areas and is unlawful. They argue the ban contributed to the 52.2% increase in deaths from dementia and Alzheimer's, the largest increase in non-COVID related deaths between March and May.
They've been treated just as a vulnerable mass of people who have no say, no agency over their own lives. Family members need to be treated as essential, which they are.
Sasha Hoare said she noticed her mother deteriorate after not seeing her for 14 weeks.
She was so withdrawn, she could barely make eye contact and she could barely converse. We tried to do video calls and that was just not at all effective with our mum. She just couldn't really get to grips with it.
A UK Department of Health spokesperson said in an email that their first priority is preventing infections and protecting the lives of vulnerable residents. Najra Ahmed, representing independent care homes, says there needs to be testing so family members can support their relatives safely in person.
Nothing will replace one-to-one touch, that care that you get from somebody coming in to visit you. And I think that's what's being eroded, and that's for every citizen.
The Care Minister this month said she wants to enable safe visits to care homes through a pilot scheme. Nikki, who works on John's Campaign in her spare time, says she feels she's speaking for thousands of people in care homes and their families who don't have a voice. Jane Werrell, NTD News, London.
That's all for today. Thanks for watching. Back to New York.
Coming up, November 2nd will mark the 20th anniversary of continuous human habitation on the International Space Station. A former astronaut reflects on his experiences there. That and more after the break. November 2nd will mark 20 years of continuous human habitation of the International Space Station. And American astronaut Scott Kelly tells us a thing or two about spending time out of this world.
Kelly is a retired American astronaut and United States Navy captain. He's logged more than 15,000 hours of flight time in more than 40 different air and spacecrafts.
This space station, this is the hardest thing we've ever done. I think harder than going to the moon. And it is really a testament of the fact that if we put our minds to something, if we listen to the experts, if we work together as a team, we can accomplish some incredible things.
His long-duration spaceflight experience includes 2 flights on the Russian Soyuz spacecraft, launching and landing from Kazakhstan, and 2 stays aboard the International Space Station as commander. He broke the record for most time spent in space after a 340-day mission to the International Space Station in 2015 with Russian cosmonaut Mikhail Kornienko. Astronaut Kelly's body sometimes reacted strangely from spending nearly a year in orbit compared to his Earth-bound identical twin Mark. Scientists released final results from NASA's Twins study. The endeavor was a unique opportunity to track the biological consequences of spaceflight and genetic doubles.
Because someday we want to go to Mars, we want to go to other places in our solar system. We have to understand how to support the crew physically.
The study revealed potential risks of long-duration spaceflight. However, more analysis is needed for more astronauts.
A Dutch company says its flying car is now street legal in Europe. It plans to begin deliveries of 2-seater aircraft in 2022.
Dutch company Paul V says its Liberty flying car has been approved for use on roads in the European Union. Certification included brake, emissions, and noise pollution testing.
Road and air regulations, they have never been built together to apply to one vehicle. So making this jigsaw puzzle where you can fit both regulations is a very, very big puzzle, which in the end ends up with about 5,000 requirements.
The Paul V. Liberty is a three-wheeled, two-seater car and gyroplane combined into one. Pilots will need a license to fly one. It claims to drive at up to 100 miles per hour, fly up to 110 miles per hour, and can fly about 310 miles on a single tank of fuel. Switching from road to aircraft mode takes about 10 minutes.
The industry of personal flying is really starting now with fly driving products, which makes flying much more handy and useful. And there are other segments to come.
According to the company, that includes performing the necessary checks. The firm's founder and CEO says the first 90 limited edition versions will be priced at around $585,000 when they begin shipping in 2022. After that, standard versions will start from about $468,000.
And that's all for now. Catch us again at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm Jasmina Davis.
This November 3rd, one of the most hotly contested elections in U.S. history. An unprecedented White House race. Who will lead the nation?
Jobs and companies are coming back to our country like never before.
He will shut it down again. He will destroy this country.
It's time to stand up, take back our country.
The president has no plan.
Tune into NTD on November 3rd for live coverage and results.